So we're going to have a little change in the agenda here. And what we're going to do is take the open forum speakers first, and then we'll move on with 4E. So probably. So we have 13, I think somebody said 12. Somebody's not here. So each speaker will have 3 minutes to give their testimony. Please keep in mind that testimony that threatens, intimidates, or makes disparaging comments about board members, department staff, or other members of the public is unacceptable and will not be allowed. The board welcomes citizen input on matters of natural resources management and department programs and policies. Comments concerning any individual's personal information or personal businesses are not appropriate and will not be allowed. So our first speaker is Travis Daggy. Travis, are you here?
I'm Travis Daggy. I'm here to talk about my experience living in West Marshland with Crex Meadows and the DNR putting in the boards to artificially raise the water levels. Because of this, my property has experienced damage at the peak. My crawl space had about 18 inches of standing water all winter long. This water stood all winter where I had to pump it out every couple days manually. This water at one point reached to where my pump for the water in my house was and burnt it out, and I had to get another one. It has flushed out my garden, at its worst points, when they had the boards in up to a lot higher than they are now. Now that the boards are down, my personal property is a lot better. But I know a lot of other people who live closer to Crex Meadows still deal with it having any boards in there. This has flooded out the roads by our house to really levels I can't even believe. We have ditches that are probably about 3 feet deep, and because these boards, when they're put in, the water raises above those onto the roads to the point where you can't even cross it. There's probably another 8-10 inches of standing water at times. I know that there's been some back and forth with some of us who have dealt with that, from different members of the DNR. Some of the members have been a lot more apt to help or at least listen than others, but overall this situation has just gone on way too long. And we're here to ask for a permanent resolution in writing to make sure that these water levels are not being kept at levels that are damaging people's property, flushing out gardens, causing, like I said, standing water, in the winters that need to get pumped out. It's dangerous when, my whole crawl space is holding water to the point where, it's going to get into the electrical and, potentially short out the house. This hasn't been an issue, in at least the last year for me, because I'm a little back farther, in the West Marshland away from Crex Meadows, but I know it's impacting a lot of other people. And we're here to ask for a resolution with that. But that's all I have to say. But I know that there's a lot of other people that are dealing with the same thing.
15 seconds.
Yep. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dave. Any questions for Dave?
Travis. That's Travis.
That was my question.
Sorry.
Number 4.
Yep, sorry. All right, Scott D. Rocker, Grantsburg, representing himself.
Hello, my name is Scott D. Rocker. I'm a resident and the town supervisor for the town of Grantsburg. My home is located in the northeast corner of Fish Lake Wildlife area, which is part of the Crex Meadows. our house is actually across from the wildlife area. It's just real close to it. I've lived there for over 5 years. And for over the 3 of those 5 years, I've had running water and lots of standing water in my basement. I've had to replace my sewer, 3 sub pumps, a well, 2 water softeners. When the DNR had the boards out of the locks, or in the locks, I'm sorry, our sub pump was running 24/7. Our water softener goes through 4 bags of salt a month. Replace 2 water filters from the pump to the water softener a month. When I have had to replace the water softener, our water smells terrible. It's orange. You can't even use it. It's just terrible. So anyway, Fish Lake Road has been underwater countless times in past years. During the last year and a half, the DNR has removed all the boards in the locks. They're actually logging in the Fish Lake wildlife area. And during this time, the town of Grantsburg, we rebuilt 1.3 miles of road and asphalt on the Fish Lake Road. This was completed in June of 2020. The current concern with us residents and town board is with the amount of snow we have, possible spring rains, and all the logging has been completed by the Assembly Flowage and Fish Lake Wildlife Area. And if the DNR installs all the boards in the locks, the new road will possibly go underwater again, which we just fixed that road. And also our quality of water will also be affected by raising the water levels. And also the town of Grantsburg installed 4 test wells to monitor the water levels and the quality of the water. These wells have shown us that the DNR holds back too much water and the water table rises and the quality of the water diminishes. So in conclusion, we as residents would like to see the DNR manage the water level to accommodate the residents and the wildlife, so they don't flood and we have good quality water. So thank you guys very much. Appreciate you letting me speak to you about this concern.
Any questions for Scott? All right, Scott, thank you.
Thank you.
Greg Gaffney.
My wife and I have lived on Pete Nelson Road in West Marshland for 36 years. We purchased our land and built our log homestead. Many years of hard physical work. We adopted 17 children. Our oldest is now 35, all from the foster care system, and have been raising our family in West Marshland ever since. For over 2 decades, we enjoyed great quality, rust-free drinking water from a shallow well. We enjoyed working our land for personal and recreational uses. We have grown our own food and raised beef and pork and poultry to feed our huge family, teaching all of our children and grandchildren the value of hard work. However, for the past several years, we've become very frustrated over how the DNR manages the Crix Meadows dike system. It has been my experience that they are causing artificial saturation of our groundwater, thereby causing high water levels on surrounding areas, including on our property. The issue is not only frustrating, it's also a great financial concern. We list just a few of the more serious points below, all of which come with only high cost solutions. The quality of our drinking water has changed drastically in the past 7 years. We have had our water tested regularly for many years as part of the home study process, which we have had many. Our water always tested virtually perfect. The water, in our opinion, is never that good anymore, but it goes from decent and drinkable to literally disgusting hard water with a strong odor and off color every time the dikes are raised. Our water table raises our water table up by raising the water level in the dikes. Our cow and horse pasture that was established over 35 years ago is regularly underwater nowadays. We've had to move our cows to properties south of Grantsburg, several miles away, many times because the high water prevents them from getting from the barn pasture to the outside pasture. We have lost countless trees due to the artificially high water table causing above surface water to kill the trees. This not only affects our enjoyment of the land, but also adversely affects the value. This issue is real, and it is obviously not a natural phenomenon. It is not an isolated one-year event. We have experienced a pattern of the DNR raising the deck levels, causing our water table to raise unnaturally high. That needs to be corrected. As West Marshland property owners and taxpayers, we would like to see the DNR work with us to restore Crex Meadows water levels to more natural levels. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Rich Goodwin.
Okay, if I pass this photograph around?
Sure.
Hi, my name's Rich Goodwin. Me and my wife live in West Marshland. Address is 25933 Spalding Road, which is about 1 mile due west of Dike 6. My wife and I built a log cabin on 5 acres in the woods 23 years ago with no flooding issues until 2019, when that picture was taken, and 2020. We had standing water in the yard around most of our house. Our water pump hold next to our house flooded. The pump hold was only 16 inches deep and previously was always dry. But the water table rose in 2019, causing 6 inches of standing water around the pump. So I tried to use a portable pump to remove the standing water, but it just kept coming back in. As a result, we had to raise the pump and tank above ground level and build a much bigger box around it. Our house sits on a cement slab with water table coming up so high, our foundation is in danger of damage. As a result, we are very concerned about the value of our property becoming possibly worthless. We had considered putting an addition in our home, but we have put that on hold until these water issues are settled. Since the boards were not put back in Dike 6 for 2021 and 22, the water table had dropped with no water in our water pump hold or flooding our yard even after rainfall. That's it. But thank you for listening.
Any questions for Rich?
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Rich. Next is Carrie Harder of West Marshland, representing Self and GLGP Water Project.
I'd like to also pass around. Good morning. My name is Carrie Harder. I live in West Marshland Township, next to Crex Meadows. Crex Meadows control structure Dike 6 is 1/2 mile to the east of my property. My neighbors and I have endured adverse effects to our properties due to Crex water elevations being held at artificially high levels. When Dike 6 is raised, our properties become artificially saturated and eventually flooded. Unless you've seen firsthand the flooding, it's impossible to imagine the destruction, the lack of property use, and the foul, swampy smelling stagnant water surrounding your living space, creating a breeding ground for bacteria and mosquitoes. On top of the saturation, any rain event, no matter how small, will create an even greater flooding situation because there's simply no place for the water to go. The natural process of hydrology cannot occur. Along with the flooding, my water quality becomes degraded with increased levels of iron and manganese. In 2010, our 10-year-old well failed due to excessive iron bacteria. During that time period, the flooding was so bad, residents met with the town board and the DNR, desperate for a resolution, which resulted in Crex staff removing boards from Dike 6 to correct the problem and appease the residents, but it was only temporary. We residents have long understood the direct relationship between the water elevations at Crex and the elevations on our properties. We live in sand country. Much of this is common sense. But now, thanks to the DNR, we also have science to back up what we know has always been true. First, the DNR's water quality assessment from 2016 by Craig Ressler explains how and why our water becomes degraded when we are flooded, and why our well would have failed from the iron bacteria being transported through the ground at compounded levels. And secondly, the DNR and USGS 2019-2020 study clearly shows the direct response in test wells when Dike 6 was raised and lowered. The summary of that report, however, is in direct conflict with the physical evidence. James Yock continues to tell us the DNR stands behind the science of that report, but what they're standing behind is the summary. The two do not agree. Dike 6 has been held at lower elevations since 2020. The hydrology process has mostly been restored. We've had no flooding issues and our water quality has improved. Many of us have been here for generations, and we have every intention of continuing that tradition with our kids and our grandkids. We support the existence of CRECs, but not at the expense of our health and private property rights. We urge the DNR to take an honest look at the science within their own reports and work with us for a long-term resolution to provide security and safety for the next generations of property owners, and in doing so, create a better relationship between the DNR and its neighbors. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today.
Thank you very much, Carrie. Any questions for Carrie? Thank you. Next is Sherry Harder.
Good morning. I recently came across the 1920 census and realized that my great-great-grandfather homesteaded in the Echdale area in 1882. I do not live on that homestead property, but I did grow up and now live just 5 miles from there. My husband and I live 2 miles directly west of Dike 6, which is one of the major structures featured in our issues. We purchased our property in 1985, primarily for hunting and because of the location. We spent a lot of time and energy clearing and building deer stands and moving a log home, log by log, from another location to the present location to use as a family hunting camp. In 2005, we built the home we live in now on Pete Nelson Road, just a quarter of a mile from our hunting shack. We built a house without a basement, knowing all the troubles people had in the area. Excuse me. We had an expensive well drilled because of the decline of water quality we experienced at the hunting shack. We made more improvements to our land, including clearing trails for our ATV and trying to dig a hole to act as a pond in our backyard when we built our home. For years, there was hardly any water flowing into it, so we planted trees on the little island and landscaped around it. We didn't build our trees or deer stands or our hunting shack in standing water. Yet in 2010, they were inaccessible to us due to high water levels. The trees we planted by the pond died because they were underwater. We did not put our mailbox in the middle of a pond by the road, yet that's what it looked like in August of 2018. People said it is named West Marshland for a reason, but I found a DNR pamphlet that stated marshland does not have live trees standing in it. Yet we had 6 inches of water flowing through our oaks and over the grass we normally mow. We didn't know why we had high water. We live in sand country. Rain, water doesn't last more than a few hours standing in our driveway. Then Duke and Tony started paying attention and investigating. Duke Tucker has done the studies, accumulated the facts, and presented them to all who will listen. We are so grateful to him for all of his research. I can plainly see the problems he has found with the published studies that have been done and reports that have been made. I do not need a master plan by the DNR to tell me when the water levels are raised at Dike 6. I can tell by the water standing in my backyard. We've not had any issues since the water levels have remained low at Dike 6. I watched the NRB meeting on September 28, 2022. Duke presented some of his information, and this board accepted that his findings were something that should be taken into account by the Wisconsin DNR. At that time, Secretary Cole requested Mr. Yock to arrange a meeting between the two parties to seek a resolution.
15 seconds. 15 seconds.
His request was that the meeting be arranged within the next 2 weeks. However, that meeting has never taken place. I know there are plenty of issues at stake. I know the problems my neighbors have with the water quality and flooding. It is my intention to follow this through to be sure that the errors have been corrected in the reports And there's a guarantee that not only can we use our property, but our great-great-grandchildren will be able to as well.
Okay, thank you, Shari. Any questions for Shari? Thank you. Jenny Cruiser, Village of Grantsburg, representing herself.
Hello, thank you. I know time is limited, so I'm going to read really quick. I'm here for the same reason. I'm just going to tell you my personal story. I was fresh out of college with a psychology degree, ready to take on the world, and I wanted to do foster care. When my husband and I had the opportunity to buy a home next to Craig Meadows Wildlife, that's what we did. We adopted a child and altogether with special needs, and altogether we ended up with 5 children. A few years after living there is when our nightmare started. It started with the water in our basement, then turned into a full-on flooded basement. Our basement became 100% unusable. We went through multiple sump pumps, water pressure tanks. Our driveway was constantly flooded. Then our septic system went bad due to the high water level. Our kids started having health effects, and one of our children went to Children's Hospital back and forth for 12 years of her life. We got our water tested in 2016. Come to find out, we had high levels of iron, manganese, and aluminum. The levels were so high, the county told us that our whole family is probably suffering from dementia and not to drink our water, cook with our water, or even bathe. We had to haul water, drinkable water, and usable water for 7 months. I'm sure you can imagine what that was like with 5 children. We brought in a contractor to look at our house. He said that our basement was unfixable and that our house was literally sinking, and there was no guarantee that our water would be any better if we put in a new well. We ended up having to foreclose on our home with financial consequences to follow us for a very long time. Fast forward, we ended up buying a nice house in the village of Grantsburg, and we were happy to think our house problems and our water problems were over. Not true. We still have water quality problems. Quarterly, the village of Grantsburg sends out a notice stating the village water has high levels of manganese and not to drink it if you're elderly or infant. At this time, I got my real estate license and became a realtor in Burnett County and the surrounding areas next to Craig's Wildlife Area. Clients have made it known to me that they have many issues with their properties, such as flooded driveways, roadways, septic system problems, replacing sump pumps, pressure tanks, water in their basement. Some people have even had to fill in their basements. They can no longer do laundry in their own homes due to discoloration and living with contaminated water containing high levels of iron and manganese. We know that the DNR is aware of our issues because some of your own research done in the 80s, 90s, and 2016 report declining in trout populations, high levels of iron, manganese, and possibly getting into the federally protected St. Croix River. In 2016, there was a paper put out by the Wisconsin DNR called Craig's Meadows Wildlife Water Quality Assessment. One of the authors of that paper, who formerly worked for the DNR, stated, children and adults who drink water with high levels of manganese for a long period of time have problems with memory, attention, motor skills, infants, and may develop learning and behavioral problems if they drink water with too much manganese.
15 seconds.
I was going to say something about the WEPA, but basically it says mankind and nature should exist in production of harmony. Well, that's our goal here today, to have mankind and nature exist in harmony. In conclusion, our objective is to achieve a long-term security for our health and property use and property values. We need a solution in writing within the GLGP master plan. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jenny. Wayne Lake.
Hi, I'm Wayne Lake. I'm a building contractor. I do not live in the Crex area, but there was a split entry house that we raised. It was in the ground about 3 feet. There was so much water in the basement or in this lower level that we raised the floor 8 inches, put in rock and a new concrete floor and about 3 sump pumps to keep up during certain times when the water levels are high. So that caused a decrease in their value. When you go in and look at a house to buy and you have a 7-foot ceiling instead of an 8-foot ceiling, people wonder why. And then we also did some building. This was on Guile Road. And then on Spalding, we were doing a basement for a gentleman on a hill, and which was fine. And they wanted us to dig, another party wanted us to dig. So we dug a basement on a lower area or a lower level that we did it with a cat excavator with tracks. They poured the foundation, they built the house, and when they came to pour the basement floor, they had to throw sand back in because it was all wet on a brand new house. That didn't make the homeowners very happy. thank you for your interest and your time and that you are listening to people, and we appreciate that. And thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Any questions? Dutch Schultz.
Morning. My name is Dutch Schultz. My community is very important to me. I take much pride in it. I'm a captain on the fire department, president of the Fire Association. I'm the chairman for the town of Grantsburg. As the town chairman, I not only represent myself, but all the people in my town. All of us speaking today have driven 5 hours to be here, taking time off our busy schedules to share with you the importance of this GLGP water project. The facts are that when water levels are held too high, yards become flooded and unusable. Basements are wet and sump pumps run almost nonstop. The quality of the water has become undrinkable and damaging water lines in homes. There is science to support these statements from not only independent parties, but also from parties the DNR has hired. Please work with us to come up with a long-term resolution and updated master plan to secure drinkable water and usable property again. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Paul. Oh, Paul. All right. And Duke Tucker.
Good morning. Due to the seriousness of this issue, Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask you for an extension of 5 minutes. Out of respect for the seriousness and the amount of time people put into coming here today. It'll also allow for time for a couple of questions. I encourage you to ask me questions about how this can be solved today before we leave. I reside across the road from the Crux Meadows. The town of West Marshland has appointed me to serve as its water committee chairman. The town is a strong advocate in protecting water quality and property rights for its residents and accepts its responsibility to provide safe roadways, as well as the fiduciary responsibility to ensure the township tax dollars are not elevated due to increased road maintenance costs due to water damage. My duty is to communicate with concerned citizens, local government officials, and department representatives in reaching a long-term solution, while also providing guidance and a monthly report to our town board. The NRBN department has again received and denied an agenda action item request to correct wording regarding the water quality on page 31 of the GLGP master plan. Currently, the public in reading the master plan would assume that the water quality is not affected much by the department's water management practices. In addition, department staff who manage the GLGP water elevations would believe that their actions actually benefit wildlife and do not create negative health consequences for residents or damage adjacent private property and its use. In referencing a preliminary water quality report, which is this one right here, you all have it, provided by the department's water program, the master plan paints a very pretty picture for the reader instead of reporting the truth. Here's the truth about what the referenced preliminary report actually says. Artificially creating flowages and holding water at higher than natural elevation within the GLGP causes not only an obvious aesthetic impact, but may also cause biological impacts such as reduced success of macroinvertebrates, fish, birds, and mammals. Also negatively affected is the plant life, which serves as food sources and habitat for all forms of life found within the GLGP. The department has repeatedly stated that its goal is to create and provide for wildlife habitat. Not only is the department's water management policy causing degraded water quality, property damage, safety concerns, loss of property use, it's also harming the actual wildlife and the habitat it claims to support. The department has not and cannot justify its current water management practices, which are harming all forms of life in and around the GLGP. Correction of the master plan water quality paragraph, developing a detailed flowage water management plan, and then actually following the master plan will ensure the healthiest environment for wildlife and the residents, and promote a very positive relationship with nearby landowners. It is no
Duke, I'm gonna
surprise
have to ask you to.
that the full
start
Burnett
going.
County Board and surrounding townships support our efforts. And we're asking the NRB to publicly get behind and support our efforts. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Ready.
Do we have any questions for Duke?
You don't know how to solve this today without any NRB action? Please ask me.
Okay.
Secretary Payne, respectfully, just following the master plan will do it. The master plan writing itself under chapter 44 allows the department to make changes to the master plan wording without NRB approval. When it finds inaccurate information, I provided that to you. It's your own information. The other thing is following the master plan, the current wetlands objectives, and I'm hoping each of you read the documents that I provided. Page 31 is absolutely false information on water quality. The master plan regarding the wetlands objectives says to maintain and restore the hydrology of the area. It does not say to expand it or anything. It says maintain and restore. I've got a 68 Dodge Charger in my shop right now. I'm maintaining and restoring that. I'm not turning it into a four-wheel drive.
So Duke.
So any other questions?
We're gonna have
I'll
to
take
wind
them.
it up. I do want to thank you guys for all coming. I don't believe that this board was quite aware of the extent of that problem. However, there is a process. Unfortunately, to amend a master plan, and it would have to be noticed and all that appropriately. So I believe I got word that they were going to have a meeting out there with you. And in the meantime, have they pulled the boards so that those water levels have dropped to where you can live in your house and drink your water?
I'd like to mention that meeting that we were invited to. This email came from James Yock here just a couple of days ago. And the subject of his message there was he invited us to the 2023 water elevation plan. I'm sorry. Your plan, the master plan as written, already has the plan. Maintain and restore the hydrology. It's there. But we can meet and I'll express what our concerns are. But that actually, to be honest with you, back in 2018, when I got involved with this, in the master plan, it states you can list your name and address and say you'd like to be a part of master plan changes or little modifications the department uses. I signed up for that. The department never notified me anytime. They've talked about water management plan changes over the last 5 years. This board is only hearing this publicly because in private, this has been known for a long, long time. So every time I come here, I come with something new. The water quality is being affected for wildlife. That's your whole idea of having the water where it is. Now in February, when I come back, I'm working on something very big right now.
Okay, Duke,
I don't know
we're
if
gonna
it'll
have to
materialize, but it'll
we're
take it
gonna
up a
have to
notch.
wind it up here.
Okay.
Mr. Secretary, would
Thank
you?
you, Chairman. I had a chance to talk to Mr. Tucker Rosa last week.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I appreciated that opportunity. And I also really appreciate all the people that did take the time to drive here and share their concerns and their personal experiences. And you have my attention. And you have our staff's attention. And I appreciate that a meeting has been scheduled and that we're going to talk this through. And I'm looking forward to working with you and everyone involved to problem solve. So I want to thank everybody who took the time to be here today and to share their concerns.
I really appreciate that. But one thing I want to note, my wife and I, we live in the southwestern corner of the Creeks Meadows. That is the direction of the groundwater. Right now, I'm going to drive back home. You're artificially flooding my property right now, and my drinking water isn't as good. The effect on us is large. And yeah, the wheels of government are slow. It doesn't take much to remove a couple of 2x6 boards to at least alleviate that problem for us in the meantime. I don't think it's too much to ask. So thank you. Appreciate it. And I look forward to communicating with you, sir.
All right. Thank you, Duke, and thank the rest of you for making the long trip down here. And you were heard. Okay. Next is Mike Foy from Madison, representing himself.